Hero Wars, Zeus is on the battlefield with a warning. Keira is still dangerous, but the reason she wins has almost nothing to do with what most players believe. Her power comes from a precise engine of heroes, buffs, and timing that completely changes her value. Watch this carefully. Let's talk about Keira. When Lyria dropped, Keira got hyped harder than almost any hero on the board. People called her a monster, a backline deleter, the piece that made the Undead team terrifying. And here's the thing most creators won't tell you a year later: the hype was real, but the reason she works isn't the reason people think. So the real question isn't, is Keira strong? It's, is she still working, and what do you actually need around her to make her worth building? Let's break it down. First, understand what Keira actually is, because this is where people get her wrong. She is not an ultimate hero. Her ult, Blade Whirlwind, is low damage. Its real job is the silence on the way back, not the hit itself. Keira is a basic attack carry. Her entire damage engine comes from her autos, and three things feed that engine. Her green skill, Enraged Soul, is the core. It spikes her attack and skill speed by up to 300% for a few seconds. That's the window where she turns into a machine gun. Her passive, Dancing Blades, makes those basic attacks ricochet between enemies, meaning every sped up hit is also cleaving through the team. And her second passive, Piercing Pain, adds bonus damage whenever her armor penetration beats the target's armor. Since Keira carries a huge armor pen pool, against most backlines, that condition is almost always active. Speed, cleave, and armor pen damage, all riding on her basic attacks. That's Keira. Now here's why she doesn't work alone, and why should you build Keira. Is really should you build the shell around Keira. Start with Corvus. His Strike of the Damned strips the entire enemy front line's defenses, armor, magic defense, and dodge, and both that shred and his damage scale up for every undead ally on the team. Run the full undead core, and that's a massive swing. More importantly, that defense strip helps keep Keira's Piercing Pain active even against a tankier front line, because that skill only rewards her when her armor penetration outscales their armor. Corvus tears the door open, Keira walks through it. Then comes Lyria, the hero that actually made Keira spike. Her Bonds of Alliance binds to the ally with the highest physical attack, which is Keira, giving both of them vampirism. And because Keira is undead, she gets a physical attack bonus on top. That vampirism is a huge part of how a squishy marksman suddenly survives long enough to ramp. On top of that, Lyria's Shackles of Doom lowers enemy dodge and makes them take extra physical damage. So Keira stops whiffing and hits harder at the same time. Morrigan rounds it out as the undead locked sustain. Her bone armor and moonlight only heal undead allies, which is a major reason this team is built around the undead tag in the first place, while her necromancy steals skeletons from dying enemies, even when they try to resurrect. She's the reason the team doesn't simply collapse once the fight goes long. And now we get to the part almost nobody breaks down properly, Sebastian, and the chain that answers the question, why is she still working? On paper, Sebastian looks like a debuff protection support, and yes, his ult cleanses debuffs and shields the team. But that's not what makes him so important to Keira. Watch the chain. Keira and Lyria both sit at 0 creep natively. On their own, they never land a critical hit. Sebastian's artifact. Old Loot seeds critical hit chance onto the entire team when he ults. That's the on switch. Once they actually have crit, his battle song increases it by a further 131% on top. A critical hit means double damage, so Keira and Lyria go from hitting once to hitting for 2. Then striking solo stacks a big chunk of unmitigated pure damage on top of every one of those crits. Pure damage ignores armor and magic defense entirely, so it's clean damage layered directly onto an already doubled hit. And here's the kicker, the part that turns this from a simple buff into a flywheel. Remember Lyria's bonds of alliance handing Keira vampirism. Vampirism heals her for a share of the damage she deals. So when her damage doubles, her healing roughly doubles right along with it. Sebastian doesn't just make Keira hit twice as hard, he makes her heal twice as hard from those exact same swings. Put it all together, and you can see the loop. Corvus strips the enemy's defenses. Lyria buffs Keira and bonds to her. Sebastian switches on the creep that doubles both her damage and her sustain. Morrigan keeps the undead core standing. And Keira is the output valve at the end of that chain. Every hero exists to pour power into her. That's why she still works. She was never carrying solo, she's the payoff piece of a composition built from the ground up to feed her. So, should you build her? If you're a newer or intermediate player with a thin roster, my honest advice is to hold off on chasing the full undead team. And I'll be straight with you, this line just isn't where the meta is anymore. The undead team is already fading out, and new teams are moving in to take its place. The meta turns over fast, and this is the part players underestimate. By the time a newer roster finishes building the full undead comp, it'll be long forgotten. Your resources are scarce early, and sinking them into a team that's already on its way out is exactly the kind of thing players regret later. Build one hero deep towards something that'll still matter by the time you've finished, not a line the meta is already leaving behind. For veteran players with a developed roster, it's a more nuanced answer, but it lands in the same place. You almost certainly already own most of these heroes, because Corvus, Morrigan, Sebastian, and Lyria all pull their weight across Arena, Grand Arena, Guild War, and more. And make no mistake, when you commit to the undead shell and give Keira the Crete enabler, the engine still works. On paper she's still one of the most punishing carries in the game. But the meta has already moved. The undead line is being pushed aside by newer teams, and still works isn't the same as still relevant. So even for veterans, I wouldn't be pouring fresh resources into rebuilding or pushing this team today. If you've already got it, it still has situational uses, but your next investment should go where the game is actually heading, not into a team that's fading from the top. That's the real verdict. Keira didn't fall off mechanically, her engine is as clean as it ever was. But the meta moved on, and the undead line is already being forgotten. Build smart, spend where the game is being won right now, and come back to this team only if the meta ever swings back its way. Keira didn't fall off, her power was always in the engine around her. Corvus, Lyria, Sebastian, and Morrigan turn her into a devastating carry when the team is built correctly. Are you still using Keira? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the guide, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more Hero Wars strategy. Build smarter, fight harder, and dominate the battlefield.